Hey guys, I'm Sebastian at Performance Place. I'm going to show you my 3 favorite exercises for groin pain. The groin pain I'm talking about is the stuff right into the crease here, okay? The crease is the important identifier in this, because if you're talking about backside or stuff into here, then we're talking about a different video. So this one is really what we're talking about. By the way, if you're thinking, well, is this hip impingement or hip flexor or high adductor, I can cover that towards the end here, but I know everyone loves me to get into the videos or the exercises first, and then we can go later if you feel like you're still interested in that. So this is going to be my 3 favorite for groin pain. Now, the first thing, I apologize, I don't have a cameraman today, so I'm going to do my very best just to get things in frame here and still presentable for you guys. So the first thing here is simply, you call this a buttress plank, okay? Or actually, you know what, we can do this from the floor a little bit easier here. Why don't we do it from the belly? Okay. Usually what I'll do in an exam process with this, by the way, is I make sure that I'm screening out the back. If the back is very commonly an aspect with this, and if we breeze right by that, even if you don't have back pain, if your back is related to this, the groin pain will continue. If you treat it like a groin, so you got to treat a back like a back, even though if it refers to the groin. So usually I'll have people start into this position right here with the elbows flared slightly, and then just creating a little bit of a diamond here. And then I like to have them pick up so I can slide my hand a little bit underneath their belly. Usually this makes it so their belly starts to tremble. That's what we want. Now, this is a progression-based exercise, so we don't need everybody to just go for broke and do the hardest thing that I'm showing, but it's mainly just the hardest thing you can still do really well and with control. The idea is that you feel it within this area, not within the area that it's painful. If it's in the area that's painful, then this is a wrong exercise for you, or you're doing too much. Again, an important identifier in this is that no rehab exercise should feel bad. It should feel effortful, okay? It shouldn't feel pinpoint in the spot of the problem. It should feel effortful. It can be effortful all day, and it's okay. Now, an important thing on this too is that just know that you can recover from this in a couple of weeks most of the time, so without drugs or anything like that, because I know people think it takes a long time. So we're going to come up there. This is position 1. In the nose, 3 seconds. Out the mouth, 6. And I want you to try to make that noise. You'll have to purse your lips like you're blowing out of a little straw. So in the nose, 3 seconds. Out the mouth, 6. It's even hard for me if you can feel me, hear me trembling. Now another progression with this is we're just doing a little bit of a reach. You act like there's a ball out there and you're trying to grab it. In the nose, out the mouth. Okay? And now if you notice on this last one that I did, is I kind of moved my body. I want you to keep the rest of it still and just move the hand or the shoulder. Notice that my ability to talk went away. So this might even be too hard for me. You should be able to breathe. But not to say you can't progress through these exercises very quickly. You certainly can. But it just takes maybe a day just to get things down. Okay? Now, I usually have people do this until their belly gets pretty tired. If they're dumping into the spine here and it looks like they're a well-ridden horse, they can do this for like hours almost, it seems like, and they still don't feel it in the belly, they feel it elsewhere. And so this creating the tenting is very important in the beginning, all right? So that's number 1. The second exercise I like is, where should we go here? We're going to go with a bridge, okay? A cook hip lift. A cook hip lift, let me go grab a device really quickly. Okay. So we're going to use this foam right here. Usually people use a tennis ball. A tennis ball is a really easy way just to get the hip, or at least the core, as a part of this. And I don't know if you can tell already by the first exercise suggestion, the core, or the front side of the core, is actually pretty important. The core is actually the entire hoop, as well as top and bottom, but the front side is pretty important. And so we're going to place this right in the crease here underneath, and you're going to bury it into just below your rib cage. You can use hands if you want to, but we encourage you not to use hands. And then take the heel to drive through the floor. The idea is to get as high as you can without losing the ball on this side. If you lose the ball, what happens is you extend it. Okay? We don't want you to extend. We want you to bury this thing up and drive through. If you have to, you can go here, but if you can't, or if you don't need to, certainly don't. Okay? I usually have people go through about like 12, 15 reps or so and switch sides. Okay? So that's exercise number 2. Number 3 is we know that from working with people in single leg stance, the hip itself, the glute muscles are assisted by opposite side QLs or quadratus laborum, as well as the whole side of the musculature here. So we need to get those in play, and sure, we can do one side, but why don't we just do both? Now for the last one, we know that the glute muscles out here are greatly assisted by the opposite side core, or you can call it QL, you can call it oblique, whatever. But in single leg stance, what we know is, let's just say we're talking about hip drop. I'm going to simulate hip drop on this side, let's just say. Well, it's not going to work well if I don't have anything to drop on, huh? Well, let me go grab something real quick here. Okay, this won't take very long. So what we know from stance leg here, so if this musculature out here is not working, we also know that this musculature over here isn't working, so they have to work together, okay? Together. And I know a lot of runners are thinking about, well, I have hip drop. Maybe I should improve my gait. You can improve your gait, but at the same time, there's strength issues. A lot of times it can create that too, or endurance ones rather. So I like just something simple, like a bridge here, a side bridge rather, side plank if you want to call it that. And just make sure you sit back every time. Okay? Notice that I'm not losing my contact with my knee right there. I'm just sitting deep, like I'm sitting deep into a chair. Now, an important thing to note on this is that if this is the symptomatic side, I'm doing the other side, that's okay. All right? I'm usually going to have people do both, but when people creep deeper into this range, say this is now the symptomatic side, sometimes they feel issues into the crease here, and that's a big no-no. So in that case, I have them shy up the knee and just kind of go right here, just up and down with the hip pocket. This is a good entry-level exercise. Now, is it a side plank or a side bridge? Well, no, it's kind of a combination of both. So we want to make sure that we're letting gravity do the downward load on us right here. So we're getting a little bit of everything, okay? Up and down, up and down. Usually people get pretty tired in here and here. So I have people usually do that to the point where they're pretty exhausted and they feel pretty good from that point. Now these exercises, again, I have people usually do cycles of them. I'll have them do 1, 2, 3, repeat about 3 times throughout the day, or sorry, 3 times throughout a single setting, and usually doing it just before something like running if they're a runner. Now, before I continue too far into talking about exercise, let me bring the model up here, and I'll pick up the camera and I'll just speak about a couple things here into the hip, because I do think it's really important for you guys to understand what is happening here, because again, the hip flexor here, which comes down, we'll just say this one's the hip flexor. It attaches right up into here, and it goes down into this area, the femur. It passes right by this area, it confuses people. Imagine that rope is the hip flexor, okay? It confuses people because it's in the location of the pain, but something like bending the hip up with passive motion also creates pain. And so there's a pinch point right around there where this ball and socket don't like each other. And so when that happens, we have something called hip impingement. And again, I'll show you a couple things that we find in people like this, just from an examination perspective again, is if this is the problem side, if we load it, if we have them push all the way up and then have them push it and it doesn't hurt, it's not the hip flexor. Hip flexor being active tissue, which would then trigger with load. Now, if they bring it up with their hands and then cross it across a little bit too, and it lights them up a little bit, or if they rotate a little bit and it lights them up, or if they go like this and it lights them up. These are fairly passive in position, and they usually notate some type of more of capsular issue. Again, very reducible. You don't need to have any big procedure on it, and most of the time people can recover after just a couple weeks of working on it. And then they just have to make sure that they return their hip to normal function. Okay, I'll say that one more time because it's an important part of this. I know that not everyone loves talking on YouTube videos all the time, but the information is probably more valuable than the exercises. So this is important. Reduction of pain can come from something as simple as taking your hand out of a door. Okay, so, or sorry, just putting a glove on when you're in the door. Okay, if you're putting a glove on, you still have the mechanism. Okay, the door's still crushing you. At some point, it'll catch up with you, but the goal is to take your hand out of the door. Okay, and so when we do this, at least in regards to hips, what we need to do is reduce pain, not by only reducing the amount of activities that bother it. Let's just say, if running bothers it, we can tell you to not run for 2 weeks, and then the hip will usually get better, but that doesn't mean that you'll be able to run again. Okay? If you want to run again, you have to build the hip's ability to function. Reduction of pain and return of function are completely different timelines. Reduction of pain, it can happen overnight for some people. And a lot of people, especially over the first week, a big reduction of pain usually happens, but return to activity is not always there. Here's what I mean. You can feel better a couple days after starting your care, but then once you start running again, it comes back again. So it's very frustrating for people, and usually what we need to do is get the hip to function well within all ranges. What we need is more so than just forward backwards. The hips do function forward backwards, but most of us, especially throughout our day, we're doing things unilaterally. So we're reaching for things, we're running, okay? And we're certainly on single leg stance, which requires these two babies to work pretty good. So we have to get the hips to work not only in the sideways plane, the rotational plane. See my hip crease forms right there in my pants, right? And then there's the forward backwards plane, which is how most people exercise. Forward and backwards is, we want people to master that first before we go on to the other ones, and it doesn't take very long to master these things. But if you do not train your hip in these three planes of movement to return back into your sport, I can almost guarantee these things will come back. And it's very frustrating when it does. I've had hip impingement personally, and I know what it's like to not being able to sit and thinking that you sit, having to be situationally placed at a diner to make it so your hip is comfortable when you're seated there. You have to ask to trade seats to be on the outside part to hang your leg off. I've been there. I've done that. Okay, I've been on an airplane where I had to sit on the outside row to hang my leg back too. I've been there. So don't give up. This can get better. If you're looking for help, again, we're in Huntington Beach. We're Performance Place Sports Care. We do also offer assistance to people who are not around our area too. So we encourage everybody just to email us and just to see what happens, all right? If we can't guide you anywhere, we'll tell you. If we can send you somewhere, we will. If we have some good information like these, we have a bunch of free YouTube and Instagram videos on this stuff. We'll help you find those. So just reach out to us. We'll do our best to guide you to where you got to be to get the best result that you can. So just email us, info@p2sportscare.com. Again, info@p2sportscare.com, or call us, 714-502-4243. We will answer all the comments below too, but it'll take a long time to get there. We do get a lot of comments, and honestly, we believe that we can get more. It's more productive to have a private conversation with you guys, because the challenging part is that we're having a public conversation or a private conversation in a public forum on a lot of times Instagram and YouTube. So give yourself a chance and just email us. All you got to do is take the first step, and we'll be there for you. Subscribe, like, and share. Talk to you soon.